Strip it. Strip the wood. Strip it. Strip the wood.
Cooper's. It's the stripper that gets it off every time.
What have we got going here today?
Well, we're going to strip a square metre of weatherboard.
For us illiterate on the math side, show us what a square metre looks like.
Okay. So the line here, the line there, that's about a metre by about a metre there. So,
1 square metre.
yep. So let's do it. So this is our stripper. And we've got a bit of an extreme one today. We've got 3 different types of paint to work our way through. On top, we've got water-based, which is often known as acrylic or emulsion. And underneath that, we've got oil-based, so your enamels. And underneath that, we've got your lead paint.
What sort of age is this paintwork on here, do you think?
I'm reckoning there's probably at least 80-year-old boards, and it's baked on. When I first saw them at a demolition yard, I was like, wow, these are too good to just chop up for a home show.
So we've got a worst case scenario here then with everything.
Absolutely. So what we do is we keep it damp with the strip. We add more as it needs. This is really, really bone dry. You can hear it crackling away. Yep, it's giving up.
So you're spraying it on rather than brushing it on.
Yeah, when I first developed the stripper, I realized that a thin stripper absorbed better than a gel.
You're not drenching it on either, it was light spraying.
Yeah, if you get yourself one of those conventional brush-on ones, often it says on the back of the tin, stick it on 2 to 3 millimeters thick. And I worked out once that I have to put this on 16 times to hit 2.5 mil. So if you see me put on a few light coats, I'm not using a lot of product. So I'm just putting it on where I think it needs it. In this case of the water-based ones, it goes rubbery. Where if you put it on top of enamel finishes, the oil ones, it'll do different things again. And then with lead finishes, it doesn't bubble at all. It goes like a clay.
So Simon, how acidic is this? What is it like on your hands?
Well, the stripper itself is pH neutral. And we're not suggesting that you don't wear gloves. The stripper will take the oil out of your skin.
You certainly wouldn't want lead-based paint on your hands and then going and having lunch, would you?
No.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about how you deal with the strip paint as you go.
So imagine you've got your wall of a house, and at the bottom you put this plastic, it sticks on, it unravels, so it goes down the wall at the bottom of the house and then onto the ground, and everything falls off onto that there. And so this whole system is all self-contained. There's nothing going into the environment. There's no sanding. Sanding is just spreading dust all over the place. And if you're washing it off with blasters or whatever, you're again getting stripper and lead and things into the waterways. You've got to be mindful of all that waste. With this, everything goes onto the plastic. It then gets wrapped up, and then all the councils have places where trade waste goes, and that's all good. We're going to do a little test, see what it's up to. You may hear some real squeaks out there. That's our friendly swallows. What we've got here now is down to the oil base, so let's take it off. Now, this is a tungsten blade, and I've taken off the corners of the blade with a diamond file so that there's little chance of gouging into the wood. And let's see what it does. This is quite a long handled wide tungsten blade, and it's quite ideal in the little short ones you get. You get a bit of extra leverage, less actual stress on you. And underneath the flaps. You're not having to push hard. This way you can keep this up for a long time. So now we're down to the oil-based layers, and the bubbles on oil-base is different to the water-based. So it doesn't go rubbery like cheese, it's sort of more flaky. When you first start with the product, you've just got to do your reconnaissance. You've got to work out the timings. And every house is different. And we really encourage people to send us photographs of their project. Send us a picture of your house, and so we can give you some ideas on what to expect and a good way forwards. Now on this video, people are going to say to us we should use a weed sprayer or something else to spray with, and that's fine. The problem with a lot of weed sprayers is the seals in them last about a minute before they come apart, and so not good. Now there are different sprayers around, and if you can find one that is good for solvents, then that's good. Also, you can use spray guns, but if you put too much pressure through the spray gun, the liquid will atomize like fly spray and float around, and you don't want the stripper floating around the room, you want it on the paint. So with this here, it pressurizes it into the end nozzle and causes it to come out as droplets, and that way it doesn't float everywhere, it goes where it's supposed to. Just light sprays at the start, so about the third to a half of the trigger length is all I'm using, and every time I touch the trigger I'm moving my hand, and that way it's way less stress on me. Trigger gets less stress, it lasts longer. How much should you do at a time? You do what you're comfortable with. So if you're happy with a square meter, then that's cool. If you want to do half a square meter, that's fine. And while you're working on one area like I've just been doing, you spray the other one before and you just work between areas.
That some people will be thinking, oh, that's all right, that's given a smooth out and on with a new paint.
Yeah, well, thinking there's always time to do it another time in a couple of years' time when the paint fails.
So again, it's because the lead has become brittle.
The lead has failed, it's cracked, and it's gone down, all the cracks are down to the wood. The new paint goes on. Generally, weatherboard paint today is the water-based ones, so they have a lot of expansion and contraction, and it's quite amazing what they'll pull off.
So lead paint, when it is the most dangerous for people is when they're mobilising that dust, isn't it, when you're sanding it?
Yeah, two things. There's dust and heat vapour.
From a heat gun.
Yeah, so people will often get out the sander, and as soon as when you buy an old house, everyone wants to go up and buy a sander, and when you granulate the paint, it's just toxic, it's just really, really, really bad, and you're busy breathing all those, you might put a mask on, but it doesn't mean everyone else in the house has got a mask, and it floats around and goes to your neighbours, and they're always impressed to be breathing up your lead dust.
Or the neighbours' chickens.
Yeah, that's a good way of getting it into the food chain.
They absorb it through their feet, don't they?
Yeah.
Their sweaty feet.
And kids. And so the thing is you want to take it off where it's wet. That's the whole thing with with dust. So our whole process is all about no sanding. You'll see as we get near the finishing line later, there's no dust, and it's because there's no sanding. Often people think lead is this sort of red colour, but it's actually more often a caramelly colour.
So you're saying that anything that crinkles or blisters is not lead?
Yeah, bubbles are not lead generally, but I have a theory too on this, and that is all dust is bad. So whether it's water-based paint dust or oil-based dust or or lead dust, it's just not good to breathe. So avoid dust. Sometimes people think, oh, they've had their house tested and they've got no lead. Well, so what? Does that make acrylic dust all right to breathe? Nothing is good to breathe dust-wise. So keep away from dust. So we'll leave that for a little bit, and it's looking wet now. Because after it's had 80 years in the sun, it's like a ginger nut biscuit. It's really, really dry, and it needs a little bit of time to soak up. So we'll be back shortly. We've given it a little bit about probably 10 minutes or so to where it is now. And there's lots of the bubbles and things, and so I don't know how far it's got yet, but putting more stripper on really is not going to be good use of money. So we'll just take off what's there. So that caramelly stuff is all lead. Taking this right down to that lead layer. Later, this is bits of lead coming away now. But it goes like clay. It's quite different to your other paints. And it goes clunk. So, now not all lead paint's made equal. You can go to a shop back in the day and buy a tin of lead paint, but more often than not, people bought a base, oil-based paint, and they added lead to it. So, I know my father, back in his apprenticeship days as a painter, one of his jobs was to mix lead oxide into the paint. And we're down now to the lead base layers.
And some houses have it on super thick, don't they? And others have it just a smidgen. It all depends on what the painter did on the day.
We're going to train. This building used to have a railway track going into it, because it used to be a gasworks. It's still there actually, it's buried under the limestone. Yeah, one of the things of doing this sample was to show you that it's not always 2 or 3 coats of stripper and bang down to the wood. One of the things with our videos is we do like to keep it real and show you what it really is. And one of the things people often ask is it really that easy? Well, yes it is. I mean, all I'm doing here is repeating the process a bit to get down there, and I'm not throwing product away. And one of the questions that we get all the time is, well, how much do you need? And this jug has 1 litre of liquid in it. So that will strip 1 to 2 square metres of weatherboard. So let's put it in perspective. When you buy a gel strip, if they're brave enough, they'll put that it'll strip something like 0.4 of a square metre per litre. That's 0.4, that's not much at all. Now that's not saying it'll actually strip it, it's saying that's how much the application is. But there are strippers out there that you put on with a trowel and you wrap with paper, and they need, get this, 6 litres for a square metre. And it sounds like I've made it all up, but you can read it all for yourself. It's, you use a lot of stripper normally. With Coopers, you'll still use some for sure, because you've got a lot of surface, but you'll only be a fraction of what you would use. And it works, which is always a good point. If it's a nice hot summer's day and you decide to strip the wall in the sun, and I mean where the sun's directly smashing onto it, then you're going to get a lot of evaporation. You're going to lose a lot of product to evaporation. So even if it's a really hot day, if you do it on a shaded wall, you're fine. So it doesn't matter if it's 30 degrees, 40 degrees, as long as you're in the shade, you don't have the evaporation, which is great. And also wind, if it's got a gale force wind going, you're going to lose product to evaporation. And all you got to do is know where the sun is each day and work around it. When you're stripping the green acrylic here, and then you're stripping the enamel and then the lead, they all take different times. Like the first lot, the wood-based acrylic there, that was probably 10 minutes of soaking. Then we hit the enamel, and that was probably about another 10 minutes, 15 minutes on that. And the lead sometimes can be really rapid. Other times it's like hitting a brick wall, and it might need another 10, 20 minutes to get through. And it's not real time, because it's not like you're standing there with a sander. You're actually just leaving it and doing something else and checking that it's staying wet.
So it'd be good to spray up another aspect of the boards, perhaps, to get rid of the other.
Well, totally. We'll have a beer, perhaps. There's lots of other things to do. Okay.
So how do you know when it's ready if it doesn't bubble and show you any evidence?
Well, what we do is we do little tests. Now, that noise is still crunchy lead, and we want to leave that until it goes to a mush. So it's so it's turning, because we can see there has been lead coming off. So what we're going to do is we're going to just leave it now. I wouldn't be surprised if it's another 20 minutes, and before when I say turns, it actually suddenly takes on a very different sound, and I'll show you that shortly. Well, what are we doing here? A couple of days ago I was editing this whole video, and as things sometimes can happen, I found we had a piece of corrupted footage, which was the part of scooping off all that lovely mushy lead paint. Such a pain. Well, rather than throw the whole lot away, I suddenly remembered that I had offcuts of the weatherboard in my wood box for the home shows. So this is the untouched bit, so you can see that it's the real deal. And I stripped them to a point where I had before, and this is the lead, and this has had the stripper on for a good half hour, and we're now got it all nice and mushy. So we do a little test, and you'll hear a very different sound. This is the lead that goes to like a soft mushy clay type consistency, and that is stuff you do not want to sand unless you want some real health issues. So let's take some off. So once we've got all this footage done, we will be back to regular video. So this is, look at that, make a sound, shall we? Well, that's part one done. So what we're doing here is going to strip off what's in the grain. So fortunately it's not a difficult job. What we want to do is create an absorbent surface for the new paint. And so what we do is we put the stripper on and we give it a couple of minutes, give it a scrub. So this is what we call a grit embedded pad. It's actually got a grit embedded into there. And it's wet with stripper. Now, if it looks like it's drying out a little bit, just puff a bit of stripper on there, keep it wet. What we're doing here is getting the paint that's in the grain out so that we've got the perfect surface for new paint. Because if you're going to park a bit of paint on top of that bit that's there, I mean, we've got failed paint sitting underneath the new paint. New Zealand native timbers are renowned for the resins in the timber, and if those resins stay in the wood surface, so if you get out the old sander and sand away, you're going to create friction, which is heat, or produces heat, and you're going to bring these residues to the surface and that can upset the new finish again.
What's in your hand now?
This is a piece of oiled button cloth.
A rag.
Yep. And so you know, t-shirt, toweling, all that sort of stuff. We just want anything that's gooey. Let's get off the surface now.
Old winter sheets, t-shirt material,
Yep.
towels. Perfect.
So this is all pretty easy. So that is part 2. So that was pretty fast. So now let's do the last part. So this is a slow drying solvent. The idea is to dilute the residues, not with water, because water will just freeze everything up. Now this is a new pad.
A fresh pad.
Yep. And so spray, scrub, and then we say spray, wipe, 3 hands. Keep rolling your rag around now. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, we
there.
can, yeah.
So that's the residue that's coming off. And if it's coming off, then it's not going to dry back into the wood. So what we're doing here is diluting the residue and getting it off onto a rag.
It's important, isn't it, when you're at the flushing phase to do it in the same time when the residues are soft.
Totally, very good point. So you do not strip today and flush tomorrow or later on this afternoon. While everything's nice and soft, take advantage of it. Now, also we don't put the flusher on and leave it on for 10 minutes like the stripper. We spray and we scrub at the same moment. Even though this is a slow drying solvent, it's not that slow. If you use something like thinners at this point, it dries quite rapidly and you get a lot of the residues being pulled back into the grain. This is truly the no sanding part of our whole system because we're diluting the residues and getting them onto a rag rather than going back in. A couple of hours time and that's ready for painting. There is no sanding required on that. So if you put a new primer on this, it's going to soak in deep. You've got here a clean, drying, absorbent surface. And absorbency is key for a new finish. So use good premium paint and you'll get a great result. Now if you were tempted with the timber itself, this wet colour that you see is the finished colour. That's what you would get.
Without the shine.
Yeah, if you were to go for a clear finish. And sometimes people buy old weatherboards at the demolition yards for making finishing.
The fabulous thing too is it's not freshly sanded, so it's got an aged colour to it.
Yeah. We're available worldwide. You go to our website, coopersstripclub.com, coopersstripclub.com, it'll be on the bottom there somewhere. And you go to the shop part and look at the stripper, and we have packs and all sorts of things. To give you an idea here, we use around about 1 litre to do the square metre. So that's us for the day. So what we like to say is Coopers is the stripper that gets it off every time.